everyone, my name is Allison and I am a knitter based in Nebraska. So previously on this channel I have done like individual knitting pattern reviews where I talk very specifically about one pattern. But today I kind of have like a lot of different stuff to talk about, and the lighting's kind of good. I have my yarn stash finally organized, and I thought today's the day that I will sit down and film like a old school knitting podcast. I have lots of different like summer knits to talk about today, but we will start first with what I'm wearing, which is the Sara Vest by You Knit Toronto. Or it's by Claudia Q, or written by Claudia Q, but given for free from You Knit Toronto. So I can talk pretty specifically about this pattern, even though I've modded it quite a lot. So I really wanted to knit a vest, but I was kind of like on the fence. I've never worn a vest before, at least that I know of, at least not in my adult years. I'll have to like look through baby pictures. I'm sure that I have old pictures of me wearing a vest in like the 90s, but in recent years, or like this winter, vests have become like so popular. I feel like out of the blue, and I was like, I don't know about this trend. I didn't know if it was something that I was going to like, if it was going to like vibe with my style, if I would like enjoy wearing it, would it be like useful? So I wanted to knit a vest that would go pretty quickly, wouldn't use like a ton of brain power, and would let me try like the vest trend before investing more time and energy into like a more complicated project. And that is how I got to this vest pattern. So like I said, I have made quite a lot of modifications to this pattern. It's knit from the bottom up, and it's supposed to have lace throughout, which I just didn't do, and it's meant to be fingering weight yarn held with mohair. At the time that I was knitting this, I did not have any mohair that matched. I have now a bunch of undyed mohair, which I think would actually look really nice with it. But either way, I had a bunch of leftover fingering weight alpaca yarn, and I was like, this is going to be perfect. It's just enough to cover this vest, and it would let me try the whole pattern without like buying anything new. I did knit a swatch for this, and I actually started knitting this in a very different yarn. I had like a Nutidin yarn held with a different lace weight. That didn't work at all. I ran out of the lace weight yarn that I was trying to knit it with, and then it also, like after I took it off the needles, it grew humongous, like so much bigger than I expected, and I did swatch that. So that was a lucky mistake that I happened to run out of that lace weight yarn super quickly. But for this pattern, I did swatch it again, and it was much smaller than the gauge called for in the pattern. But I kind of figured that I wanted it to be a tighter fit. The pattern that they have, I think it's like 1 to 2 inches of positive ease. I was like, maybe 0 ease, maybe a little bit of negative ease. Not only will it be quicker to knit, but also it'll give me just like a tighter silhouette, and that's kind of what I wanted to try. And then obviously just knitting it with a fingering weight yarn instead of the fingering weight with the mohair, it's just less yarn, it takes up less space, so it will be just smaller. Besides changing the gauge and removing the lace, the other thing that I did was take the cast on measurement for the small, because you go from bottom up. I did the small cast on, and then through the course of the body, which is just straight stockinette, every couple of inches I did increases so that I went from the small measurement to the medium measurement before you split for the armholes. And I just did this to make it even more narrow at the waist. I have kind of the tendency of knitting things far too large, or at least my end product ends up a lot larger than I expected it to be. So I'm trying to make up for that in my more recent knits, and instead of knitting like a medium or a large, which I've been doing, I'm trying to knit a small. I'm trying to do the waist shaping, trying to kind of get a better fit than what I've gotten in the past. Which isn't to say that I don't like an oversized fit, because I absolutely do. But I feel like during the summer, I just want to have a little bit more of like a streamlined silhouette, and having the waist shaping I think really helps make this pattern pop. Overall, I think it's a really solid pattern. I might actually knit this again, like more true to pattern with the mohair, do the whole thing, because it is pretty easy. The lace that it calls for is also really easy. It's just like eyelets basically. I think it's a really pretty, very classic. It like fits. I've worn this with a lot of different vests and shirts. I think it looks really cute, and it's just like an added extra little layer of warmth while we're still in the pre-summer heat days. I definitely don't think I'm going to be knitting any more vests like this summer because it's just getting too hot. I'm never gonna wear them, but I do think that in the future, closer to fall, I will definitely have more vests in my future. I'm thinking like a more oversized version. Petite Knit has a bunch of really cute vest patterns that, of course, I love. There's also this one pattern, I'll see if I can figure out what the name of it is, that has like a box weave pattern to it. Super cute. So there are definitely more vests in my future. I'm glad that I gave it a shot, but it's already getting a little bit too warm to wear this like super thin one layer of fingering weight. We're getting into summer. And speaking of summer knits, I have my next finished object, which is the Outline Tee by Jessie Maed Designs. So if you follow me on Instagram, you will not have seen this because I haven't taken a picture of it yet. Hopefully by the time that this video goes up, I will have taken my finished object photos, but I really didn't do any updating while I was knitting it either. So first things first, this is knit in Purl Soho linen quill in the shade Turmeric. And I got this yarn to knit the half and half wrap, which I am working on and I will show you in my works in progress. But I basically decided that the first color that I was knitting it with, while I do like how these two colors play together, I just don't think that I would actually wear it in like the fall and winter. And the half and half wrap is like a absolutely massive shawl. I'm never gonna wear it in like spring or summer, so I had to make it more wintry. Which then left me, I already bought the yarn for it, it left me with 3 skeins of this yarn, and I didn't quite know what to do with it. But I love this color, and I actually have a t-shirt, like a store-bought t-shirt, that's like exactly the same as this. I'll see if I can show a comparison, but it's like as similar as can be. But I was like, I like this t-shirt a lot, I've got this yarn, why don't I just knit a version of this t-shirt? And that's how I got to the Outline Tank by Jessie Maed. This is actually another bottom-up sweater or t-shirt, I guess, which is odd. I'm normally a top-down girl, like 99% of the time I knit everything top-down so you can like try it on as you go. But it just so happened that I have 2 back-to-back bottom-up garments to show you. I have had this t-shirt in my like potential things to knit file for basically, I'm sure, as long as it's been out. And the thing that has been holding me back from knitting it was A, am I actually going to wear like a woolen t-shirt during the summer? And B, will I like the shape of it? I decided to give it a go when I had this like leftover linen quill. It's a linen, I think, alpaca and wool blend, and it feels really nice and light in the hand. It doesn't feel as like heavy as a linen or cotton fabric can, and it's a little bit more summery feeling than just like a plain wool. So I had all this yarn left over and I was like, what am I going to do with it? And I decided finally that I would knit this tee. Construction wise, it's super easy. It's actually not like wildly dissimilar to this vest where you knit from the bottom up, you separate the front and the back, and then you knit, you know, the neckline separately. When you're done with each section, you get to like pull apart all of like the little dropped stitches to create these drop stitch details, which is a lot of fun. Although with this linen quill, because of like the linen strands throughout it, it's super easy to accidentally split just that little bit of linen, and it made pulling apart the drop stitches a little bit, not hard, but there were a lot of stitches where it did not want to keep going. I did have to get in there with like my little tiny scissors to like cut the little bits of linen where it was preventing me from pulling apart the stitches, but easily done. I mentioned before that I'm working on trying not to knit things too oversized. Like I'm trying to work on the ease that I actually think looks best on me. So I knit this in a size small. if I were to have gone by the pattern suggestions, I should have knit a medium. I was wrong. So I should have knit a large, and instead I knit a medium. And I did that because my Hello for My Colors crop pattern that I had knit, which you can see on my channel, it's got a ton of positivities, much more than I kind of anticipated for the size that I knit. I'm pretty sure I knit a medium in that as well, but I knit, regardless of what it recommended, I knit this in a medium, and I don't love the fit of it. I think part of the problem, or like the entire problem, is the shoulder construction. So this is kind of like a boxy drop shoulder, and I just feel like it looks weird on my shoulders. I think I'm so used to knitting a lot of things that are like raglan, or, I mean, like this doesn't really have much of a shoulder, like it doesn't go across my shoulder, and I think I might just not like how drop shoulders look on me. I don't think that it turned out to be the most flattering, and part of that is because the fabric is like a little bit stiff, and I think that maybe with wearing it it'll like loosen up and kind of flow a little bit better. But I think if I were to have knit this in a fabric that has a little bit more ease to it, or is just a little bit looser, like it's not terrible, but I feel like you can tell it's got a little bit of heft to it that kind of holds the shoulders in a place that I don't love. Apologies for the lighting, but to cut in here, this is kind of what I was talking about. So like there's so much structure here that I just feel like the shoulders look funny. Like this has been folded for not that long, and the fabric is remembering the folds. Like it was sitting folded in my closet, not like anything was pressed on top of it, gently folded, and it's really holding on to that texture in a funny way. So I don't know, it's maybe not because of the dropped, I don't know if it's because of the drop shoulder construction or if it's just a fabric choice, but you see how it's just kind of thick. That's it. So because I do like want to wear my knits, I'm someone who very much is like a product knitter, I suppose. Like I want the end product. I really enjoy the knitting, but I want to like use and wear my pieces. So because I haven't actually worn this because of how the shoulders kind of fit, it is a little bit frustrating for me, but I'm going to like make myself wear this. I'm gonna wear it like 2 or 3 times and make sure that it's not just because it needs to have like that break-in period. Shoulders aside, I do actually think that if I had knit it a little bit larger to have more fabric to move, that it probably would look a little bit better. So that is in part on me. I'm gonna wear it a few times. I'm gonna try to like break the fabric in and see if it drapes a little bit better before I consider unraveling it. But it was a super enjoyable knit. It really flies through because it's mostly just in stockinette, and then you get to have the fun of playing with the drop stitches. The way it like locks the drop stitches into place is really clever, and overall I really enjoyed making this, even though I have not yet enjoyed wearing it. Something that I have enjoyed wearing quite a bit, which you can tell because they're a little bit dirty, are my soft ruffle socks. So this is a pattern that I drafted. It's a free pattern. You can find basically the tutorial of how to do it on my channel, or you can read the actual pattern on Ravelry. If you don't use Ravelry, just send me an email. It's just a PDF. I'll email it to you, and it explains basically how to add this little mohair ruffle to a plain vanilla sock. So let me talk first about the yarn because I'm obsessed with this yarn, and then we will talk about like the actual pattern. This is knit entirely in Neighborhood Fiber Company. I love Neighborhood Fiber Company. I think they have like the best sock yarn. I'm obsessed with it. They have amazing colors. Like this is like neon bright. They're super saturated. They don't really run. I'm a humongous fan. But these are in the colors Mondawmin and Charles Square. I will put which one's which down below. They're pretty similar, but the mohair is ever so slightly more purple, and then obviously the main sock yarn is like fuchsia. So I was inspired to knit these socks by the Twin Aura Knits knitting podcast / Instagram. I'm sure you know them. They had a sock hop knit along that they were running, and I was like, you know what? Now is the time to finally knit my Ruffle socks. I have been like thinking of knitting Ruffle socks for ages. There's like so many different patterns, but I really didn't like the construction of them. I've looked at a few where either you do the ruffle first and then you fold it over, or there's a lot of different ways that you can do ruffles, right? But what I really wanted was the ruffle to be like fully sandwiched into the cuff without having to like fuss around with a provisional cast on. I didn't want to have to like graft it together. I just wanted it to be as easy as possible. Like I said, you can get the full tutorial, you can get the pattern for free, it's not a big deal, but basically I just tinkered around with this for like a full month of trying different ways of adding and creating ruffles, finally got to a place that I'm happy with, and I knit these amazing socks. They are super fuzzy because I put mohair in the toes and the heels. You don't have to do that, but like highly recommend. It's the first time that I've done that, and I've knit a lot of socks and it makes them so fuzzy. And mohair apparently is like really great at preventing like holes or whatever. Like the rub test for mohair is supposed to be really good. And also silk, super strong. So it's like strongest heels and toes, and also they're very, very soft. I have very strong feelings about my sock yarn, as you can tell, but like I said, spent ages tinkering on how to get the like ruffle and sock exactly how I wanted it. I had a lot of different styles, like a lot of different color combinations that I tried, and I'm really, really happy with this end result. So I think it's super cute. I wear them all the time. I was a little bit worried about the mohair felting. Like I know it's not supposed to, but I was worried about it like kind of getting that crushed look that things can get when they get a lot of use. And surprisingly, they haven't done that. They still look super fuzzy. I do wear these a lot. But it's funny because the mohair, although it's not felting, it's like picking up little baubles from other things. So like if I'm sitting on the couch with a blanket on and the blanket has like a little bauble on it, it gets stuck to the mohair. So like the mohair's not felting, but other stuff is felting to it. Not the end of the world, but super, super cozy. Love these, super bright. I think they make any outfit really fun. They are completely ridiculous, but all right, that is it for my recently finished objects, but I do have a couple of works in progress that I'm finally like making some progress on. I feel like I've had I'm not losing my knitting mojo. I didn't lose my knitting mojo, but I definitely had a slowdown. We recently moved house, like there's a lot going on here at the house to like do, like we're doing a lot of painting and stuff like that, but I'm finally getting into a little bit more of my knitting. So I was thinking to myself, like I really want to do some summer knits, but like what would I actually wear? Because like I find this is in alpaca. I find it really warm. I generally find alpaca really warm. I have knit in the past a couple of cotton sweaters, like 100% cotton. Those are so heavy. I do not recommend for summer knitting any like 100% cotton yarn. It's just not as lightweight as you would expect it to be. But Purl Soho was doing a sale on their cattail silk and their linen quill. And look at me knitting a little raglan. So this is the Cozy Classic Light by Jessie Maed Designs. It's a very Jessie Maed podcast episode. It is knit in Purl Soho cattail silk, and I'll put the color name down at the bottom because I can't remember it offhand, and I'm obsessed with this. I am so excited to finish this and get a lot of wear out of it. It's extremely lightweight. I've never knit with 100% silk before, and it's delightful. I thought that it would be kind of like rough on your fingers because it's not like super slick and shiny. It's very like textured, it's a little bit nubby, it's like matte. All of which is not really like what I expected it to be, but it's gorgeous. And the fabric that it's creating is really lovely and airy. You can see it's definitely a little bit see-through, which I don't really mind. I'll probably wear it either with a tank top underneath or whatever. Like, you can't really see through it that much. And I think it's gonna be really lovely and light. The Cattail silk skeins have so much yardage to it. It's like over 600 yards in a 100-gram skein, which is crazy. So I think I'm going to try to knit this entire sweater with what I have left. So this will be one skein. I have already split for the sleeves. So sleeves, and here I've knit about 1.5 inches or so of the body. And I think what I'm going to do is knit maybe a little bit cropped. I don't think I'll be able to get like sleeves out of it, so I think it'll be like a short sleeve t-shirt. So for this pattern, I again didn't quite get gauge, and my gauge is a little bit smaller than what the pattern intends. However, when I had washed my sample, it was super maneuverable. Like, you could move it to like any position that you wanted it to be, so it can stretch quite a lot. You can smush it so that it's a little bit smaller. And also, I threw it in the wash because Purl Soho says that this is machine washable, machine dryable, and I wanted to test it and see what it did. So I found that in the wash, it did actually shrink up a little bit, but the texture of like the machine washed fabric was gorgeous, super drapey, very, very soft. I loved how it looked. So I think I'm going to try throwing this in the wash. So in this pattern, I am hoping to get like either 0 ease, maybe a little bit of negative ease, maybe a little bit of positive ease, but I want it to be fairly form-fitting, and so I'm knitting a size small. And I think that between knitting a size small, my gauge is a little bit tighter, and if I throw it in the wash, I think that it's going to get like exactly where I want it to be. This pattern is like surprisingly thorough. Not only does it have like a ton of sizes, it's super size inclusive, but it gives you instructions on like varying different sleeve lengths. It gives you instructions on how to do waist shaping, how not to do waist shaping. It's very, very comprehensive of different ways that you could style a raglan, which I think is really great. I'm definitely someone who I've like knit enough to be like, if I really wanted to, I could figure out a raglan pattern, but I just don't feel like doing the math today, which is a little bit cocky, yeah, but I do often feel like that. There's just like so many raglan patterns. They are pretty simple once you know what you're doing. However, with the amount of different like modifications that it gives you in the pattern, I think it's absolutely worth it, especially with the especially with all of the different sizes that it's given in the pattern. I think it's super worth it. Definitely like recommend the classic, Cozy Classic Light pattern by Jessie Maed. I also have the same yarn in a like super dark blue color. I think that that will be gorgeous. I might knit like a camisole with that. I'm not 100% sure what I want to do with it yet, but I have another skein of that. Easily can do a cami. Could maybe do another t-shirt. I don't know. I haven't decided, but I'm super stoked on this Cattail silk. I might just be a little convert. I was very much like, after knitting a couple of patterns in 100% cotton, I was like, screw summer yarns, not worth it. It's too heavy, it's bulky, it doesn't look right, it doesn't have like the same textures and properties that I'm used to with wool, but knitting with this 100% silk, it's gorgeous. I will definitely be doing it again. I actually have another skein of this like purpley color, so either I could do full long sleeves, but I think what I'm gonna do is short sleeves on this, and I have that cloud bow pattern from that magazine, Pom Pom magazine. I think that it could look super cool in silk, so that's another option that I could do in the future. All right, last work in progress for this episode is my Purl Soho half and half wrap. It is massive. Immediately dropping stitches, lovely. So I have been working on this since Christmas. Not really, I got the yarn for Christmas, but I've been working on it since January. It's been a really long time. This pattern was so popular this winter, and I wasn't sure about it. I'm not a shawl girl. This is the first shawl that I've knit for myself. I knit my mom one shawl previously as a gift, and I was like, never again, not a shawl person. I just don't really like knitting flat. I don't enjoy it. I much prefer knitting in the round. I know that's such a perfunctory thing, especially this is in garter stitch. It's knit the whole way. You're only doing knit stitches. But for some reason, knitting all knit stitches in the round, 100%. Knitting knit stitches flat, not about it. But like I said, I am a bit of a product knitter. I really wanted this end product. It looks so cozy, and I know that I will get a lot of good wear out of it once it's finally finished. So I chose the colors Peony Pink and, like I showed you earlier, Turmeric. So I do think that these colors look great together. I think that they're really pretty, but they are super springy. And I, have had months to mull it over. And as I've been knitting this, the longer I've been knitting it, I'm like, I'm just not going to wear this with the yellow. I just don't think that it's going to end up being a very wintry shawl. And that's the only time that I'm going to wear an enormous woolen blanket as a shawl. So like I said, when Purl Soho was doing their sale, I finally decided on a new second color and purchased it. So this is the linen quill that I've been using. The Peony Pink is the light color, and then this is the darker color. It is, where's the name? Chestnut Red. And I think that this is going to be just a really beautiful tonal scarf. It's obviously a darker browny red, the light baby pink. I think that this is going to be really lovely because you can fold this shawl in a lot of different ways. It's basically a giant square cut down the center, and one triangle is going to be the light pink, one triangle is going to be the darker browny red. So you can basically fold it that you only see the red color, you can fold it so you only see the pink, or you can fold it so you can see both. I think it's going to be really lovely. And I have finally got onto the last skein of the first section. So if you have knit this before, it's a free pattern. It's basically a million short rows. It is I'm knitting the larger side, which I think starts with 260 stitches, and it's -1 stitch each row. I have this many left. This is unstretched. So I have this many left to get to the top of the pink triangle before I start the next color. Part of the reason why it's been taking me so long to knit on this is I had cast it on and I was knitting it for the first full skein, I think, with my go-to needles, which are Chiagu metal needles. Obsessed with them. I really like a sharp needle. I really like super slidey metal needles, but for this, the needles were flying off constantly. I was dropping stitches left, right, and center. It was stressful to knit on, and I was like, this is essentially a fingering weight blanket. How am I going to finish this thing? So I actually bought a pair of needles specifically just for this project, which I never do. I never buy needles just to do one thing, but I do think it was worth it because it went from a project I couldn't make myself work on to actually an enjoyable, completely mindless knit. So these are the Licka driftwood needles, and they're really nice. They're not as slidey as some of the bamboo needles can be, but they are much more grippy than metal needles. So it's much easier for me to knit on this without feeling like I'm constantly dropping all of my stitches. So I just switched out those needles maybe 3 weeks ago or so, and in that time I've finished the one skein, finished an entire another skein, and I'm almost done with that first section. So this is a project that is super low on my priority list because I'm not going to wear it until next autumn, So I have like at least 6 months to finish it. So it's not something that I work on all the time, but it is like the perfect mindless knitting, car knitting, anytime that I want something that's just like, don't have to think about, that's what I go to. But that is all of the knitting content that I have to share with you today. Let me know in the comments what you're working on right now, and I will love to talk to you again soon. Bye.